Welcome. I am, of course, here with Colleen,
Hello.
and we are here today with friend, colleague. I've been a client of his as well, Padraig Ansbro. Welcome, Padraig.
Hello.
We're
Happy New
so
Year
glad to
to
have you.
everybody.
Yeah, Happy New Year. We're glad to have you. Actually, when this releases, I think it will be also right after the Lunar New Year. So
Ooh,
happy Lunar New Year as well to everybody. Very
absolutely.
different energies as we move into the fire horse, the year of the
The
fire horse.
Aries season too.
Yeah. Well, we'll be
Well, not yet.
in
Yeah,
not yet. Yeah, not yet. We'll be in Pisces
right,
season at
right.
that
Yeah,
point.
except that
Yeah.
Saturn and Neptune move into Aries
Yeah, I'm
at the
excited
same
about
time.
In the around
Aries
that
That's what
time.
you're
season.
thinking of. Yeah.
So, well, okay. So first of all, I just want to say for those of you that watch our podcast on YouTube, my internet, as you know, I'm in a different location because of my basement flooding, blah blah blah. My internet is really bad today. So if I turn off my video, that is why I am turning off my video because it helps with the choppiness. So I just wanted to give a little announcement for that. For those of you that are listening, you won't notice a difference with that. So you're all good. But we're really excited to have Patrick today because as I said, we have Colleen and him have been friends for a long time. I've been a client, a hypnotherapy client of Padraig's in the past, which is wonderful. We're gonna talk about that today as well, and his resources and all of that around hypnotherapy. But originally, we wanted to schedule this podcast because we learned about some of the work that Padraig does. He does a lot of work with his own charity that he's done, but we talked about this on Veterans Day this past November that he does Reiki work with veterans. So we wanted to hear about that, Padraig, as well as the other things that you do. We know this conversation is going to flow where it flows, but that was one of the things that we wanted to start with because you do a lot of volunteer work with veterans and a particular veterans organization and how that works with Reiki. We have a lot of listeners and we've done podcasts in the past where people want to know how they can give back with whether it's veterans. We have had people that do with first responders, volunteer work within medical settings. And so it is something that we're also passionate about spreading that, about talking about ways we can do this, and then the work that you are personally doing as well. So we're really excited
Perfect.
to talk about that, and then of course the other stuff that we know this is going to flow into.
Sure, sure.
So let's
Conversations
go
are
ahead.
dynamic.
Yeah. Let's go ahead and start with your story, around your spiritual path, how you got into Reiki. And then also, we know that you are a veteran. So, how this kind of all came to be, the organization that you work with. And then we'll get into more questions and details about that.
Okay. Um, it's interesting because I've been doing a lot of uh, thinking about that and what were the things along my life that moved me into this direction. And ever since I was a kid, I always had these ideas about spirituality. I was raised, this is funny, cognitive dissonance, right? I was raised as a Catholic and a Jehovah's Witness. And yeah, so there were these pulls in different directions, which you wouldn't really think would be different directions because the theme throughout both of them, in my estimation, even as a young kid, was love, and it's love and compassion. And my families were wrapped up in the actual dogma of it, the practice, and that's where there was a lot of friction involved on both sides of my family. That being said, took a lot of Bible classes and a lot of CCD on the Catholic side, and I resonated, excuse me, with the spiritual aspect more than the dogmatic aspect. And hey, I had my first communion. I had my confirmation. I was an altar boy. So all of that spiritual aspect really resonated with me. And that's what kind of set my tone for looking for other things that still had a spiritual aspect. There was a time when I thought I was going to be a priest, and as I looked more into it, I felt like it was, confining. And these are just my ideas. And I thought there's got to be a more open way to be spiritual in the community and in the world. So I did a lot of reading. Um, Psycho-Cybernetics was a great book that I read. It opened up my mind to how the mind works and how we create our reality. Um, the Carlos Castaneda, very much part of my world. I read every book that he wrote, and that was the shamanic aspect. And between those things and other spiritual books that I read, it got me to start looking for um, more practices. And I did meditations. I studied hypnotherapy as a 11-year-old because I have 7 brothers and sisters that I was trying to tame, and I used hypnotherapy on my very young brothers and sisters. Just the calming voice, because they would be crying in their cribs, and I said, since I'm babysitting, let's see if I can get this to work. And it worked beautifully, I have to say. It's a calming voice, and you tell them you want them to go to sleep, or whatever it was at the time, and it honestly worked out great. So that kind of that snowballed into learning more and more about hypnotherapy and the benefits of hypnotherapy. And then later on in my life, after I got out of the Navy, I started looking into shamanic work, and one of the things that took me in that direction was I was interested in witchcraft and basically Wiccan, and I saw how the Wiccan perspective and philosophy kind of really resonated with me, because it was more of a whole earth philosophy that God is in everything, and the earth is actually alive, and that really resonated with me. And then from there, it moved into opening up my eyes about shamanism. So and I followed down that path, and Colleen and I were in similar areas with regards to that, light song, and I really found my path there, and I dug more into hypnotherapy, and then went into Reiki. Thank you very much, Colleen,
You're welcome.
um, for the classes, and I found that kept opening me up spiritually in so many ways that I did not. It's very layered, and I added all of this to my medicine bag, which I call it. These are the tools that I use in my medicine bag for healing, and there's a lot more that went on in the meantime, but it was that path that led me to where I am now. And I love it. I feel very centered. I feel very compassionate. I feel that forgiveness is huge. And when I talk to clients, these are some of the things that I break out of my medicine bag to help them. It's usually not just one thing. A lot of clients will come to me for hypnotherapy. I want to stop smoking, or I have PTSD or insomnia, or I want a better body image, more confidence, any of these things. And through the intake I'm sure you do first, and you do this intake, and you listen to them, and you find out, well, these may be what you think are things that need to be addressed. It's usually something else that spurred that on. And by listening and using neuro-linguistic programming, which is basically listening with intent to understand how people talk to themselves, uh, I've been very successful in helping people uh, get the healing that they want. And I've been also blessed that every time I give a healing, I get healed myself. Uh, how do you feel about that, both of you? And I've heard you say it, so this is kind of like a softball pitch in your direction. But do you feel a healing every time you give a healing?
Oh,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and it's one of the fundamental aspects of Reiki because you're channeling and other practices too. It's not exclusive, but
Sure.
it is one of the fundamental principles of Reiki energy, right? Is that you give as you receive. So
Right.
yeah, you absolutely do. And then two, because as I said that I've been a client of your sessions as well, that when you are channeling a Reiki session or an energy healing session, you learn so much for yourself that's applicable to yourself that might have come through for somebody else, but it's like,
Right.
oh wow, look at that. That is beautiful information. And so that's another piece of it as well.
It's true. Sometimes I get things that I go, wow, that's, like you said, it's a beautiful piece of information. I need to apply that to my life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, they'll say, by the way, this is about you too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's not one way. No.
Yeah.
The
I think for me, the other part of it is I've been really thinking about this specifically because it's always like, what is this and how does this work? Because it's so fascinating as well as empowering, but in addition to all the other things we think of about it, it's just to me endlessly fascinating.
oh, yeah.
So I'm always asking, like, how is this working? Why does this work? And one of the things with the receiving while we're giving is that it actually elevates us into the energy of it.
Mm,
So it's in addition to receiving or observing the information that we are engaging with, we're actually in that heightened energy. We're in those higher frequencies of the energy.
right. I
So
Yeah,
get
it's
I
you're
get
on a
so
cellular
altered.
level.
experiencing it.
Yeah,
Right.
you're
We
experiencing.
all talked at the same time. So, Padraig, what did you say?
Yeah.
That's the one thing about
Basically
sometimes.
reflecting what you guys were saying is that
Yeah.
yes, I get altered when I'm
Yeah,
in that state. The client is altered, I'm altered, and we're sharing. It's almost like a mind meld or
yeah,
spirit meld, if you will.
Yeah,
yeah.
you're actually experiencing it.
True.
Like I'm not a clear empath or clear sentience, but I am absolutely experiencing the frequencies of the energy behind it. And I know you both are, that's but what you're also both saying. And that's, gosh, sometimes when you're in that energy, it's just like so it's awe-inspiring.
No, it's just beautiful. And at the end of your sessions, you probably say, "Okay, you're in an altered state. Uh, you know, bring yourself to center if you're going to drive anywhere or have something else going in there. Make sure that you're present, grounded, and aware. And and they're still going to be energetically high from the session. And I make sure that they are grounded before they go, and then before my next session or whatever I'm doing, I have to make sure that I'm grounded before I get behind the wheel of the car or I make a phone call,
Yeah.
a business phone call, because almost anything could come out if you're still connected to spirit.
That's so
So I
true.
recently
Water and a
heard,
little bit at a time.
Exactly.
so I recently heard the word um, that what we are in is called phenomenology.
Mm,
And so I don't know more than that. I just know. I've heard the word. It's now something I want to listen more around, research more, because I had never heard it before. So it's maybe other people know what it means, but for me it was like, okay, what is the difference? Why is it called phenomenology?
Yeah, I that's
Sounds
interesting.
like
I haven't heard
sounds like a
that
Muppet
word.
word.
Exactly. So I was like, is that a real world
Mono-
word?
Anybody that phenomena. I mean, I
Yeah,
like it. I agree with you, Colleen, but it does sound a little like phenomena. Yeah, phenomena.
phenomenology.
Yeah,
Took me a
phenomenology.
while to
It's
even
true
be able
though.
to say it.
Well, the ology would indicate like, like the study of
Yeah.
phenomenon. Yeah,
Hmm.
I like it.
Yeah,
It's a
now you
philo
can't
Well,
say it without me
recognized.
laughing.
I just
yeah,
looked it up and it says it's a recognized philosophical discipline
Mm, okay.
interesting.
used in psychology, medicine, neuroscience, anthropology, and consciousness studies.
Ah,
Consciousness studies.
covers a lot of
Interesting.
ground.
Routinely used in peer-reviewed research and university programs worldwide. So
Wow.
that
Interesting.
means maybe other people have heard of it before. So we'll look into it more. But anyway, back to your story. It's all our story. So let's get into the Veterans Project.
Oh, sure.
And you are a veteran, so tell us that part of the story too. And, um, I know we actually do really want to talk about the Veterans Program, and I know people want to hear about it.
Sure. I'll start out with the Returning Veterans Project. It is a nonprofit not funded by the government, private nonprofit, and it is, if anybody wants to look at what they have to offer, it's called returningveterans.org. .org. Returningveterans.org. Wonderful organization. Everything is free to the veterans, and this could be current military or past military and their families. Very, very important work. I am a provider for them. I provide hypnotherapy and Reiki, and should anybody want any shamanic um, practices and healing, I make that available as well. They are open to practitioners in all realms, and they have chiropractic, they have massage therapy, they have talk therapy, um, hypnotherapy, and Reiki. A variety of healers are out there and service providers. I recommend anybody who is in Southwest Washington or Oregon to look them up and apply, see if there's anything in there that strikes you as something that you would use as a healing mode or modality. They are a wonderful organization. As a matter of fact, I am the chair for our Seaside Elks Lodge Veterans Committee. And the last couple of years, we have put on a veterans program. And this past year, we had the CEO or the director of the Returning Veterans Project, and she was amazing. And I can't say enough about it. I highly recommend it. Any veteran or family member of a veteran, connect with them. All of their services are free, and they have a variety of providers that can help you in anything that you think you may need healing with. Um, and on that note, I want to say that there is no judgment. These people are compassionate. They are here to help you, and it should not be a lost the word, but you should not be worried about seeking help. Everybody needs help sometime in their life. We need support. And I say reach out because a lot of these people are from the military as well. So they understand what you have gone through. And You know, I remember my time in the military. I was in there for 5 years, and I did some amazing things, some very, very difficult things, and things that I carry with me today. Some of the good things and some of the tough things. Um, Anybody who's been in the military knows that oftentimes you go in there as a young person and you are being indoctrinated into a specific kind of world, a world where you are meant to follow orders, you're meant to follow processes and procedures, and you are not meant to think a lot about it, because when you are in particular situations, it's reaction and not thoughtful reaction. You have to be able to move when you're told to move, do what you're told to do, because you are there with a team, a squad, and these you're put in situations where you need to be counted on to do the job that you are there to do. Um, some of these jobs are not great, and we have cognitive dissonance with regards to that, because when you come from a civilian uh, environment and you go into a military environment, uh, some of the same rules don't necessarily apply. So you have this conflict of, why is it what I'm doing in the military the right thing to do? And when I get out of the military, it's not the right thing to do. And we find this specifically for people who've been on the front. Vietnam, Afghanistan, any conflict out there, and you are doing things that, you know, um, would not be acceptable in civilian life. And so the transition from the military life, to civilian life can be difficult for a lot of people. You have to reconcile what you have done in the military. And I find a lot of people who are faith based, whatever their religious faith is, they sometimes have to set that aside when they're in the military and doing certain things. And then when they get out of the military, they have to reconcile these things. And it's moral dilemmas. And a lot of my clients have those moral dilemmas that they have to reconcile. And for me, it's it's heartfelt, because I understand this. I understand where they are, where they came from, all the things that led up to it, and then now they're in with their families now who have not been in those situations, and they are trying to understand the best they can. But people who are coming from the military may not have the skills to say how they feel, because they've been told to compartmentalize these things. And then when they get out into their family, they don't know how to make that next step, that transition to being embraced by their family in a very relationship based way, where they can share their feelings, they can share their experiences. And oftentimes they're scared to do so, because they're not sure how those experiences are going to be received by their family, because they don't have those shared experiences. That's why a lot of people in the military, uh, brothers and sisters in arms, can connect.
Well, I love how you said that many people that are in this organization are vets themselves, because even though like I can have a lot of compassion for people who have served in whatever variety of ways that they can, I, like you said, I don't have the same perspective of somebody who has been in the military, and I, you know, can still give back and all of those kinds of things. And yet at the same time, I'm sure it's so helpful to have veterans who can really be in the, understand the space that somebody is in that needs the support. Also, as a practitioner, um, one thing I just want to add to the conversation about the confidentiality that I all of the practitioners in this organization have, whether they're therapy or a spiritual practitioner, we still have confidentiality within the sessions so that, like you said, everybody needs help at some point in their life, but also to know that there's confidentiality, whether they're a veteran or a family member of the veteran processing all of this, that is, I would imagine, a part of the services provided.
Absolutely. Thanks for bringing that up. Yes, it's totally confidential. Nothing goes outside of the space, that sacred space that we have to do our healing.
And I think too that regardless of our viewpoint of how all of the landscape of conflict and things like that is, whether we are, let's say, a pacifist or we come from a long line of a military family, all of us can agree that our veterans deserve and need more support than what is being provided to them at this time. Because
Absolutely.
obviously we have those statistics that we know about, the 1 in 22, and those foundations that are a part of that, and they deserve and need more support. And I love that there are organizations that are giving back to help support people in their mental, emotional, spiritual landscape that they need.
Yeah, it's true. It's needed, and I think overall we need a lot more of it. I don't think the
Yes.
veterans, and this is historically proven too, that the veterans who have given so much and to our country and the world at large too, are not getting the help uh, that they actually need when they come back and when they exit service.
Yeah. And help in so many different areas, not just the ones that I mentioned, help with,
Oh, sure.
you know, physical and so many different areas that agreed they don't get the help that they, you know, there's not enough support for them in all
Well,
different areas.
oftentimes, Robyn, we go in as young people. I was 18 when I went in the military, and we're still impressionable. We're still, we've barely left high school and learning our way around the world and trying to figure things out. And then it would be foolish to say that going into the military is not an indoctrinating program because you go through boot camp, and boot camp is hard, especially when I mean, you just come out of high school, you may have been in party mode, still through adolescence and puberty, and then you're getting indoctrinated into a totally different world. And you're separated from the people you know, you're separated from your friends and family, and you have to find your place within this brand new world that is really harsh. I mean, there's nothing about going into the military that is fun right off the get-go. When you walk onto the base, I mean, you've seen the military, shows where about boot camp and the CEO is coming down harsh on you, drop it, give me 20, and on all of this stuff. Now, some people never did a push up in their life, and some people have never been screamed at to that extent to that extent in their life, and you're a worm, and so they're breaking you down to build you up. Understandable. I understand how that goes. And after a while, you begin to wonder, am I really a worm? And and how do I find my place here? And uh, and that continues throughout your time in the military. You end up building up confidence. Absolutely, end up building discipline and finding your place in a routine, in a regime, or a regiment of waking up. This is my job for the day. I do the best thing I can for my job during the day, and then this is what I do at the end. And you've built this uh, group of friends who are mainly friends by association because they're going through the same kind of trauma that you're going through. And it is trauma. And until it gets to a point where it doesn't feel like so much like trauma anymore, it feels like life. And this is your life for the next X number of years. Now, not to say that you're not learning some skills, you're meeting some great people, and you are building up a sense of identity that you may not have had when you went in.
I think it was really interesting when you were talking about what I heard was the necessary skill development to learn how to follow orders kind of unconditionally. Like that actually, you have to actually develop a skill to be able to do that. And I've just never thought about that part,
Yeah,
that that
it's
actually takes
incremental
like,
because you got to keep your team alive.
yeah,
Because each one of the people on your left or your right, forward or back, are depending on you to follow your training because our lives depend on each other doing the same thing and knowing that they're going to do the same thing.
yeah, that is something I've just never thought about. As you say, as Robin was saying too, that if you really have no exposure to the military, then it's all what I've seen in movies
Sure.
or returning veterans telling me their stories and
Right.
still not being able to understand. You did say this is also the Returning Veterans Project is also for the family members.
Absolutely. Because, like a pebble in a pond, it radiates outward. So, anybody who has a veteran in their life and is going through some challenges in their life are going to be affected. Spouses, children, brothers, sisters, they're all going to be affected. And oftentimes they're confused. They don't know how to offer healing or support to the veteran that needs it. And they want to. The love is there. The way to get there is unclear.
Yeah.
So, Patrick, the the organization that you work with, you said you're in Seaside, Oregon, which is a coastal
Yes.
town in
Hmm.
Oregon. But you said that this organization operates in Southwest Washington and Oregon.
And Oregon, right,
Okay.
right.
So for
And
anybody that wants to get involved in this particular organization, we'll of course put the information in the show notes. Um, because we do distance work, can people from other areas, do you have veterans from other areas that are a part of this organization? So this is kind of a twofold question.
okay,
Can people from a distance get involved in this organization, specifically, but then also people might have an interest in their area? Is this an international organization, or like how can they like connect with an organization in their area to contribute to this work?
and that's a good question. returning veterans project that I work with is Southwest Washington and Oregon. However, I have not been aware of them turning away any veteran who is looking for assistance. Now, some of the service providers are face to face, they're person to person. I provide, I do that online because hypnotherapy can be done online, Reiki and my shamanic practices all done online because, as we know, energy has no boundary. So, and the results are very, very, very good. Um, as far as nationally, I am not aware of anything yet. However, I will do some research, and if there's an opportunity, I will be glad to share that information with your podcast viewers and anybody else I come in contact with. On a personal basis, my practice, I work with veterans from across the United States and parts of the world. I offer them a deep discount as well as their families because I know what it's like to have the need for healing and not really understanding where to go to get what you need to be healed. And like I said earlier, it's a lot of veterans would prefer to go to somebody who has the knowledge of the military. You know, it's that brother and sister in arms um, kind of connection, relationship.
Yeah, you need that understanding. Just like women might prefer to go to women, people of color might prefer to go to people of color,
Absolutely.
these communities that we might all have so that we can have that relational aspect with each other.
Right. Absolutely.
You know, my father-in-law is 98 years old and a World War II veteran.
Mm,
And at his age, of course, as we know, people repeat themselves. And it is the story he talks about first, always.
mm.
Every time
Well,
we see him, as if we haven't heard it before, those of you who have people in your life that you know that's what's true, but that is the story he talks about first.
well, he's proud of it. He's
Yeah,
proud of it. And there are a lot of military people who are proud of the fact that they served
yeah.
and what they have done and in service to this country. And I applaud that. Absolutely. You should be proud of what you did because it's not easy. It is, 5 years of my life doing this. There wasn't an easy thing I did. And you think your limitations are here. You think this is who I am. This is as far as I can go, and you find out by doing all the hard things that you have no limitations really. That bar just continues to be set higher and higher and higher. And so being proud of your service is to the country, I think is great. Absolutely. And for a long time, it took me, it was very uncomfortable for people, for me, when people said, thank you for your service. Uh, I honestly had no idea how to respond to that. And still, I'm a little uncomfortable about it. I mean, I appreciate it. It's become uh, kind of a norm as soon as somebody finds out that you have military service. And the best thing I can have known to come up with is thank you. It was my pleasure.
Yeah. Well, don't you think too? I think of, speaking of my father-in-law in World War II, coming home to an entirely different experience of being a veteran
Right.
than coming home from Vietnam or being in the military today or any of the other wars. There is, I mean, just to be frank about it, there is the duality of honoring that service that I think would probably be a challenge too.
Absolutely, Colleen. And it goes back to what I was thinking about earlier with the veterans making that transition from military life to civilian life, I think there's also a disconnect where civilians need to understand the military and where they're coming from, and that there's a challenge on both sides. Some people went in for everybody went in for their own reason into the military, and then when they get out, they they're facing this new world to them that is totally different than the world that they're coming from. It's a real different world. And them trying to find their place in it, and also their families trying to find their place with this new person who's come out, because they're not the same person. They've got some of the same characteristics, but their mindset has been altered from all of this. I feel comfortable in saying it's programming. I mean, we all
Yeah.
go through programming, whether we're in civilian life or in military life. In military life, the programming is for a particular reason and a specific outcome. And that programming is hard to transition sometimes when you're coming into civilian life.
Yeah, I really appreciate this conversation because I think that it is um, very underserved as far as the awareness of being a civilian, going through all of the years, of course, from the 60s and post Vietnam. My husband, Robin, was the very first year the draft was abolished.
Mm,
And so and we were dating before that in high school. And so not knowing if he would be going to Vietnam
right.
until that year, finding out he wasn't, and how all of that is still playing into today's world around this whole, the military as a whole. And we don't have enough education as civilians about it
Yeah, it's
from the other viewpoint.
this is to give you a couple of real world examples. When I first got out of the military, uh, I slept armed, and I always had a K-bar, which is a knife, uh, uh, right under my pillow. Had that, and sometimes there was a part of my military experience where I went through. It's called Hell Week, and you go almost a week without sleep, and you're running and you're swimming and you're dodging ammunition and explosions and all of this stuff, and it really sinks into your psyche. And at the end of it, uh, I slept for 18 hours, but still, when I got out of the Navy, that Hell Week feeling. One of the things was is that you would wake up and you wouldn't know where you were or who you were, and so there, my buddy, who was a roommate of mine at the time, when I got out, he he kind of freaked out a couple of times because I woke up and I jump up wide awake and not know who I was or where I was. But I knew, I knew if I went to my pants and got my wallet out and saw my driver's license, I could find out who I was and where I was living. And that got me back to, okay, whew. But that anxiety, that feeling of not knowing anything in that space, that's really tough. And it took years for that to go away. And also, there's a PTSD connection with that, where nobody could come up and touch me from behind without first acknowledging that they were coming up, because otherwise I went into defense mode. And sometimes that didn't work well for the person coming up behind me. My wife, even today, when she comes into the room or is about to come into the room, she will knock on the door and just say, "Hey," and great, because early on in our relationship, I could hear, this was beneficial for me and her, that I could hear her walking up the hallway, because I was always on point. And a lot of military people are like that. I mean, we live together, we shower together, we've constantly, go to the bathroom together. We've got constantly got people around us 24/7, 365. And when I first got out of the military, it was too quiet. It was, I went in to take a shower, and there weren't five other guys in the shower with me. And, I had a sink to myself, I had a shower to myself. But being in that situation, I would shower with the curtain open and the door open, so I would be prepared if anybody came through. There was nobody coming through. It was all in my head. But that transition, that's when I could have really used somebody to speak to and help me transition from military life to civilian life. Saying, "Hey, it's okay. We can help you walk through this transitional doorway." And that's what I try to bring to the table when I work with military clients.
So, Patrick, for those of us that, where my mind is going right now with how these services can help, because obviously, many of us aren't trained talk therapists. So
Sure.
staying within the scope of our practice, but what we can provide or what we might see helps is, just as an example, Reiki helping with the nervous system, right? Helping to calm down the nervous system, because as you just described, obviously PTSD is a whole more than just this, but Reiki helping with that fight or flight
Right.
aspect that the nervous system holds. So I think the root of my question, and I don't know if it's like exactly like, I think maybe you see where I'm getting to, is like how, whether it's hypnotherapy or whether it's Reiki or some of these other practices, if we're not trained in some of the things that, like, verbally help people process, how can we, or what do you see how these things help with people, because like if I were to have if I were volunteering, maybe I'm going to a clinic, or maybe I'm going to stay within the scope of my practice. Obviously, I'm a civilian, but what I do know is that I can provide Reiki to help people and their nervous system, for example. So what are you seeing as far as regards to that, or how can people help in those regards?
The biggest hump and challenge I think I have to get over, well, me and the client have to get over, is first they have to want to come for healing. They have to feel like they need the healing, and be committed to having the healing change their lives. Um, we military veterans live in what I call a pragmatic world. It's very physical, and it's ones and zeros, and what we do as a practice um, doesn't really fit into where their worldview is as a healing modality. They go to the doctor. What's the doctor say? Boom, give me a pill, put a patch on it, give me a stitch, put a brace on it. I'm good to go. However, getting past that to a modality that they consider that's not real, that's woo woo, that's magic, it's less than this. Getting over that hump is a really good start for them to get the healing. And how I explain it depends on where they're coming from. I will have a conversation with somebody outside of the the healing area. They didn't come to me for healing. I'm having a conversation with the veteran. After a while, you learn to read signs, and then you let your empathetic or your psychic knowing reach out a little bit to see what the layers are underneath there. And then you have a conversation where you build a connection, a bridge, sharing that brother and sister in arms. And then you say, would you be interested or have you ever heard of hypnotherapy, Reiki, any talk therapy, any of these healing modalities? And if they say no, or that's that stuff isn't real, then I go, okay, do you have a faith that you believe in? Do you have a church you go to? Right. Okay. Do you pray? Well, yeah, I pray. I said, okay. Prayer is energy. That's you're reaching out to spirit, to God, whatever form that takes for you. And that's Reiki. That is what you're doing, is you're reaching out to a source that is you feel is a higher source to get some healing for yourself or someone else, or you're petitioning for a particular outcome. That prayer is, in essence, another name for Reiki. And that opens up a conversation about, well, what is Reiki? And so I speak to them about Reiki. And then it opens up another conversation about hypnotherapy. And I don't always go into shamanic practices because you got to stay in your you got to stay in your swim lane to a certain degree, but otherwise you just lose them. And I can certainly go off into the spiritual realm and talk about all the magnificent opportunities there are there, but you have to know who your audience is, who's your demographics, who are you speaking to, and then when you do that, you hone your conversation, stay in that swim lane, and then read their responses as you give them space to react.
I'd want to add to the conversation about that is that there was a study that came out about, I think it was with the Reiki brigade that works with, now I could be misquoting the study, so I will definitely double check this, that works with the first responders and the police force of Chicago and the benefit that Reiki has. And the Center for Reiki Research, even like, I think they might have, I know that they were involved in some way as far as like, validating the whole thing, because that's part of what they do. And so I wonder if something like that would also be helpful, because police force of Chicago, I mean, I know it's different, but there might be
It's still the same.
recognition
Yeah.
there, there's a recognition
Right.
of like, oh, if this is working for somebody like that, maybe it could work for me as well.
Right. There's street cred.
Yeah, exactly. Of a similar, we're not talking about like
Yeah.
in a hospital, like it's of a similar kind of resonance there.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. So being able to provide that kind of information gives it credibility.
Yeah.
oh
I'll
well,
look it up, and I'll look it up and make
yeah,
sure that,
share it with me.
because
I'd
yeah,
love
I'll
to have
share
that.
it, because
Yeah.
I know it's something along those lines that I just have lost it over the top of, off the top of my head.
The beauty is of what we do here is that it's being more and more backed up by science.
Yeah.
And that way we have references to point to. You say, you know what? I get it. You think I'm a little out there, a little wooey. However, technology for primitives looks like magic. So consider ourselves looking at new things. It's not magic. I mean, it may seem like it, you may feel like it is. It's really grounded in science because we are vibration, frequency, and energy, and everything operates on those three things.
As I hear both of this conversation, part of the conversation, I think of how many different people talk about doing this work with veterans, the research that is actually very legitimate research out there about it. And yet I don't know that there is um, one place to find all the information of all the resources. So, as you say, the Reiki Brigade doing that work in the Chicago police force, I mean, that's some pretty big street cred. And the
Yeah, it is.
results of it and the research that is actually out there and the people doing this work. But I think there's not one, there's the Center for Reiki Research that has the different research from all different avenues. But, what is focused specifically on veterans? Where are those resources?
Yeah, there's a lot of information out there, and you're right. I think it would be awesome, and it might even be there. I'm not aware of it, and I speak to veterans a lot, and they always seem surprised when I give them the Returning Veterans Project website and or other uh, lists of opportunities for veterans. And I think, I'm going to do some research to find out if there is actually a central source of veteran information. And if there isn't, I'll start one. It's very easy. Here's some links for X, Y, and Z. I mean, veterans have a lot of opportunities for, not only healing, but discounts in certain stores and areas and parks and recreation where, if you're having a problem, a challenge, and you need some healing, my first thing is to step outside,
Mm.
get some air, walk in nature, take your shoes off. And I don't care if the wind and the rain is blowing sideways, the snow is up to your waist. Get out in it because it will ground you and center you. And if you don't feel comfortable doing that, stand in a cold shower. I do that every morning, and it's abusive, and yet and yet it's very centering for me and better than 4 cups of coffee.
Patrick, for those the listeners out there that are connecting to this conversation, maybe they are a family member, a child, a sibling, or a friend, or a vet themselves. What suggestion do you have for them to get involved, or what can they're in their mind, like, I want to help too. What's your first suggestion with that?
Wow. If if they are looking for help for themselves, or are they looking for help for their uh, their family member, their veteran family member?
Or they want to give back, like, let's say they want to volunteer for
Ah,
something. If they want to give back, like, I want to volunteer as a Reiki practitioner, what can they do?
I okay. I would say the first place I would reach out to is Returning Veterans Project.
Okay.
Sign up to be a service provider there, and uh, almost every city has an American Legion, and I'm a member of the American Legion. I'm a member of the Rotary. I'm a member of the Elks. Get involved in the community. Find out where the veterans are. The biggest area where you can find a lot of veterans that I am aware of would be the American Legion.
Mm.
Go talk to somebody at the American Legion. I know they have meetings there. There's probably an opportunity for them to give a presentation about what their practice and modality are, and they can bring that to the table, give a short presentation, and let them know your availability. Other places, there are always for here in Seaside, every I think it's every Thursday morning there's a veterans breakfast. It's at Lum's Auto Service, and thank you, Lum's, by the way, for providing that. Um, so go to where the veterans are, introduce yourself, and let them know that you are there to help. And and then go from there. Open up a conversation. If you have a member of your family that was in the military, talk to them about that. Like your grandfather, Colleen, uh, they are more than willing to share experiences, and some of them are going to be a little raw, but
Yeah,
that's
he's a
okay.
little raw.
That's the military that I know. I've got a friend of mine, a woman, and it's interesting because she was in the army. She was an army medic, and when my wife and her husband and we're all together sitting at the table, we will be having beverage, talking about a variety of things, and every now and then I'll look across the table and I'll see her and I'll say something, and she gets it. She totally gets it. Now my wife and her husband are going, they just had a communication and we are not a part of it. We don't know what that is. And that's the kind of community and conversation and communication that people who are in the military can have that the people in the civilian life just don't understand. And it's not like we're plotting anything. It's just that connection, you know?
It's a
We
secret
didn't
language.
take it that way.
Yeah.
Well, so I know you do all of this work with the veterans, but I would also love to catch up with you about your personal business work too. And
Okay.
I say it that way because you also are in Seaside, Oregon, and you work online to do hypnotherapy, Reiki, and shamanic practices as part of your practice aside from veterans.
It's true.
So I want to hear about it because I haven't caught up with you for a little while. So I do
I
want to hear about it.
know. I know. It's a shame, you know. And okay, so to that point, Rhonda and I have a nonprofit we've operated for 30 years. It's called Madeline's Party, madelinesparty.com, that we have provided for families in need throughout the years for 30 years. It goes by in a blink of an eye. It really does. As a matter of fact, Rhonda and I just celebrated our New Year's Eve. The and to your point about not seeing each other in a while, we do this every year, and we get to see all these people we haven't seen in a year. And the first thing we do is we got to get together. We got to, a year is too long. We have all these stories to tell and experiences to share and love to give. Let's do this. And before you know it, we're at the next Madeline's party saying the
Right.
same thing over and over again. So we really, it's important to make time. John Lennon said, "Life is what happens to you when you're busy doing other things." And that
Hmm.
is exactly what happens in everybody's life. So I give people a lot of grace, and we do, have to make time to reach out and just touch someone. Whether now we have texts, and that's an easy way to do it. My preference is a phone call. I love to hear other people's voices. This is a wonderful mechanism. Zoom, love it. It's the next best thing to being there. So going forward, my practice is hypnotherapy, Reiki, and shamanic practices. And what I do in my hypnotherapy is I do an intake with people to find out what's on their mind, how they speak, and that plays a lot into how I plan to move forward with their sessions. And then I create a session for them specific to that person. I also, before the session, I meditate and send Reiki out to them because we're going to do a healing session. And through my Reiki and meditations, I get input from spirit to understand a little bit more in depth about what needs to be healed and what processes I should be looking at and going in that direction. And then we have our session. Reiki, I do basically the same thing. I do an intake, find out what's going on with the person, because people, if you let them speak to you, you can understand more in depth about what's going on inside their head and inside their heart. And by identifying that gives, and this is just my way of doing it, it gives me a better understanding of how to approach the healing. And then once the healing, once I do Reiki, I let spirit guide me. And what I thought and in preparation, because I'm a project manager, what do? I manage the project. And, not to say people are projects, but, if you break it down, that's what it is. I have to remove what my expectations are and what my perceived outcomes are going to be, and then let spirit drive me. And I'm always amazed and always surprised, and I get more and more information. And then I ask the client at the end if they want me to share what I've gotten, and most of them do. Some of them say, no, I think I feel I came here to get what I wanted. I feel like I got what I wanted. Thank you. And that's just fine with me. Then in my shamanic practices, I do a lot of clearing of houses and corporate buildings, because as we know, everything has energy, and you want to bring that energy to its default position. That's why we smudge, that we want to get back to, we want to clear energy that doesn't belong to us. Because as we move through our life, as we move through our day, there are other energies out there, good, bad, and different, that have a tendency to hang on to you and cling to you. I clear myself before I come into my house every time. I have just a short ceremony. It's not overt, but I don't want to bring anybody else's energy into my house. I just want my energy, highest vibration, high frequency. And I do that. I like going to yard sales. So here's an example. And my wife and I travel around the world, and we like sculptures and paintings. So we will pick them up from around the world, and I bring them into the house only after they have been cleared. Before I did that, I have brought some really weird stuff into the house, and it was visible, and it wasn't malicious. However, it did move things around in the house. And I realized that, that something I already knew, that everything carries energy. Things we buy in the store carry energy. Somebody had to make that. what was the frame of mind of the person who was making that at the time? What was the environment like? A lot of the things we have are probably made in less than happy environments. So it's important to clear the energy of that so that you're not dragging that energy around with you and having it impact your life. So those are some of the things that I do: hypnotherapy, Reiki, and my shamanic practice. And if anybody wants to find out more about me, they could go to themojomoment.com and reach out to me there. My email address is Padraig, as you can see right there, how to spell the first name, at themojomoment.com. And I'm happy to speak to anybody.
Can you give a quick example of your ritual before you walk in the door to cleanse yourself?
Yes, it's very simple. As I come up to the door, I just say to myself, I only take the highest energies and the highest vibrational frequencies that are my own into my house and release any negative energies back to their source of origin. And I do a Reiki practice, which is I wipe that arm, wipe that arm, wipe that arm, shake it off, and say thank you. And then I walk in the door.
That is just a great idea. So, um, it's so interesting because I think about managing my empathy when I leave the house
Mm.
and have my way of placing Reiki around me so that I'm not, like a filter when I go
Sure.
out into the world. So I'm not, I have the energy to filter the external source. But I really love that about going into the house from where I have been.
Yeah, I
It's a
think it's
great
important for
idea.
self-care. And not only self-care for you, but self-care for your family as well. Because,
Yeah.
some of the situations I'm in throughout the day, there are people who are not happy. And it's easy if you're an empath, which I'm not really an empath, but I can feel other people's energy. And you're an antenna. And as an antenna, or a magnet, if you will, you can attach, or people will attach and be drawn to that uh, physically and spiritually, energetically. And so, like Marley from the from Christmas Carol, you'll be dragging these chains and locks along with you, and you're going, "Why do I feel so freaking heavy today?" And it's because you've got all these other energies that are seeking your light. And it's important. You speak about, both of you speak a lot about discernment, knowing what's your energy and what is not your energy. And release everything that is not mine and only keep the things that are mine. And sometimes other stuff sneaks in.
Oh,
It's a
absolutely.
really interesting world we live in. There's a lot of stuff out there that people just don't know about. The elementals are all over the place, and if you here's an easy way to understand spiritual elementals, the negative spiritual energies. Drive down the road. In particular, drive down Highway 26 at traffic time, and the road is filled. I can see them on the side of the road just eating up all that negative traffic energy right there. And I can just see it. And those are elementals. And then when you get home, you've got this, you've been through traffic and this guy cut you off or whatever it is, and you can't shake it, and you've brought that energy into your house, and then you retell the story and you get that emotional and it's not good. And then that spreads to the rest of your house. If you can, shake that stuff off at the door, let it go, and do not invite it in your house. We do not have a welcome mat in our house. We refuse to put a
Oh.
welcome mat because, like vampires, bad energy can only come in if you invite it in. So,
I partially moved when I lived in San Diego because I couldn't live my life in traffic because
yes,
I became that person. I am
oh,
not
it's
a good
easy.
I am not a nice person in traffic, like the bumper to bumper
Uh,
traffic. I just get
I
so
feel
mad.
you. I totally
Yeah.
feel you.
And
It's
it's that empathy too, right? It's not just me. It's just like everybody in that space. It's so challenging.
oh my gosh. And if you want to talk about the fact that there are different dimensions, it's an easy analogy to put out there. Everybody in their car is living a different life. So I consider each one of them a different dimension because we have no idea what's going on in that little environment, and then that little environment goes to another environment. We just don't know. So as you're driving down the
True.
highway, you are being bombarded, hopefully not physically, but you're being bombarded by all of these different dimensions that some are speeding up and going past you, some are letting you pass them, some are taking this exit. It's amazing if you think of our world in that capacity.
I think of that too, Patrick. That's really funny because I also do that. I'm better now, but mostly because I live in a place where I don't sit in traffic
Yeah,
anymore. So
seaside's like that too.
yeah, seasides. I'm in Sandy, so it's
Right,
it's kind of
right.
similar. But I think about that too when in the times when I am in traffic about like, it's like, wow, that person has had a whole different life experience and they're
Oh
going on
yeah.
to a different life experience. But then I also think also they're a being of the light at the core of their being, even if they're not being very nice in traffic. And I look at them and
It's true.
it's like just watch that melt away into their God spark that's within all of it. And it's always an experience of like that also shifts where I'm at of like that remembering of seeing them in their God spark that is the core of who they are.
I love that you brought that up because I think it's very, very important. When I was growing up in a parochial school, I remember uh, one of the nuns said that you have to be careful when you're out walking around because you may be speaking to God. And I carried that with me all the time. Now, I've spoken to God pretty harshly sometimes. And I most recently, about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, I did a video on my YouTube channel, The Mojo Moment, that got some pretty heavy pushback from some people who have specific faith. And the uh, the name of the video is "I am God and so are you," and uh, I put it out there. It's humorous and pointed. I just wanted to point out that we are all God. I mean, we're all connected. We have the God Spirit in us. There's no separation from us and the universal Spirit, which is God. And I brought up driving as an analogy in there.
Oh,
And
how funny.
I recommend anybody who is interested go there, check it out, and please leave a comment. Let me know what you think. And I'm not dissing anybody's religion or anybody's faith. I mean, God love you. Follow what makes your heart sing and makes you a better person. Absolutely, you do that. Um, it's I've been down, like I said, Catholicism and Jehovah's Witness, and I chose another path to help me be a better person, and a better person not just for myself, but for the people around me in my community. And I think whatever you find that drives that for you is what you should definitely look at and keep close to your heart. The biggest thing is forgiveness and compassion to one another. That's my mantra, and I'll keep pushing that forward until I die.
With
I
grace.
love it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know that we could continue to have these beautiful conversations, but I know we're also getting close to time. I would love to also have you back, Padraig, to really go in depth in hypnotherapy and hypnosis, because I know that would
Okay.
definitely be an interest in that our audience would have, for sure, and us as well. So yeah, we'll have to have you back on for that conversation also. 'Cause we didn't get into it as much as I think both Colleen and I would have liked right now. Um, why don't we take a moment and just, give your information, where people can find you. You have some helpful videos, speaking of hypnosis, some helpful videos on your YouTube with that as well. So yeah, why don't we just take a moment to share if you also have anything upcoming,
Okay.
as well.
Great, and that's a wonderful segue, by the way. I do have a couple of things upcoming, and then I'll close with how people can get in touch with me. I am There's a story my dad told me as a kid that I loved, and it always made me cry, but I loved the story, and it's called Sandy and the Rarey, and it's a Celtic tale of a young boy who's lonely and is looking for a pet, and finds one in the ocean, and it is ends up becoming a sea monster, and how that interaction and that friendship becomes a huge part of not only his life, but his children's life, and a legend. And so it's called Sandy and the Rarey. It's coming out in 2 weeks. So it will be published, and I'll let you guys know when it is published. And then after that, I'm writing a couple of books on elements, water, fire, earth, air. And each one is going to be about how they play an important part in our past history, in our lives, and spirituality. So those are what I have coming up as far as my publications. If anybody wants to get in touch with me, uh, you don't have to be a veteran. I work not only with veterans, but also with civilians as well. Please go to my website. It's themojomoment.com. And my YouTube channel is The Mojo Moment. Look for my weird spelling name right there, Padraig. It's Irish. I'm an Irishman, and so I don't have a problem talking.
That's why we
Uh,
relate.
there you go. So I have to thank you both. You've been very instrumental in my life. I love the Reiki shares. If people are seeing this podcast and have never been to one of your Reiki shares, I highly recommend it. This is a wonderful opportunity to get good spiritual advice, have a good meditation, and also practice your Reiki skills. It's just a wonderful forum, and it's well worth your time.
Oh, thank you. Well, and that's on, so I'll add to it, that's on ReikiLifestyle.com, our distance Reiki share. That is every Tuesday morning from 9:30 to 11 a.m. Pacific time. And it's free and open to all levels and on Zoom. You do need to register for it. So go to ReikiLifestyle.com, and just so you get the Zoom links every week. Well, Patrick, we had another subject we didn't have time to get into. We'll have you back for it too, and that is emergency preparedness.
Ah, sure.
He
Love
also
to.
does presentations on that. And boy, when you were talking, this was before the recording started, I was like, oh, I need that information. And definitely want to have you back for that too.
I'd
So
love to be back. It's a pleasure being
yeah,
with both of you.
yeah, it's so fun to have you here and catch up. All right, well, is that everything, Robin?
I think so. Yeah. So thank you, Padraig. And Colleen already said ReikiLifestyle.com.
Yep. I will
Excellent.
mention right now, because of when this is getting posted, that there would still be room in the Karuna Reiki class that I am teaching with William Rand. It's a 7 day on in Maui, Hawaii. So 7 day Karuna Reiki class. So anyway,
What could you go
final
wrong with
final
that?
little thing. Yeah.
I know, right?
Yeah. Oh
In
darn.
Hana.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know, and I have to leave early because I have to get there early because airfare is so high on the days that I wanted to go that I'm getting there very early.
She has to go a couple days to
Yeah,
early to
Oh,
avoid
yeah.
the airline fees. Like, oh
yeah,
dang, more time
yeah.
in Hawaii. Yeah.
All right.
All
Well,
right.
thank you,
Well,
Padraig.
Thank you so much. I
I was just
appreciate
going to
you
say the
having
same
me
thing.
here.
Yeah. Thank you so much. And we'll see everybody next time. And Patrick,